Hi, Anita. Welcome.
So as usual, Anita, we're just giving people a few minutes to join us and then we'll be ready to get started. Good time to make sure you have a glass of water, body's taken care of.
Mhm. Yes, and that's a good time to grab something to write with and something to write on. You can always type if that's better for you. If not, you could grab like anything to write on. We're gonna do a little bit of reflection. You could use your phone, whatever works for you.
Patty Banks was just hitting it around. I don't know where. Oh, sorry. I forgot I was unmuted and my kid is asking me for things.
We can all relate.
Mark, I didn't realize until after the fact. Do you teach at Arlington High? You're muted.
Hold on. Yeah, I teach at Social Collaborative.
Okay. I graduated from Arlington Highway way back in the day, so that's why I was curious.
It's funny because I play softball with a couple gentlemen, and we play in a tournament every summer, and we call ourselves the Spy Ponders because they're pretty.
Oh, I wonder if that's what I saw. Does your email have spy ponders in it?
No, it does not.
Where would yeah, because I think that must have been something related to that must have been what triggered me because I was like, oh, that was our mascot.
I wonder, could it have been last time? I mean, I might have had that T-shirt on,
Oh, yeah, maybe.
but
Yeah, I think so because I work in Arlington Public. So that's what, yeah, and I was asking if you worked in the high school.
right, I think that's what it was. Yeah, no, couple of guys. That's what they decided to call the team, the Spy Ponders.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh, Jennifer, you're in the right position. Yay.
Yeah, we got it worked out.
You
Welcome,
can
Megan.
Google
Welcome,
anything.
Victoria. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. And then as people join us, of course, they'll hear everything we're saying. So some of these things you guys have heard from me before, but we'll go through it all. So welcome to Cultivating Mindful Resilient Schools, the second in a three-part series, promoting students' resilience in pre-K through 12 schools with Dr. Simone Kotraba and the Chris Walsh Center. I'm Natalie McCollum, the graduate assistant for the Chris Walsh Center, and I'm joined by the Chris Walsh Center coordinator, Therese Antrim Roberts, as well as Dr. Simone Kotraba, who I'll introduce shortly. Before we begin, I'll read the Chris Walsh mission statement, then make a few announcements and provide information about how today's training will run. So the Chris Walsh Center is here to serve our community by providing information for families and educators about the continuum of educational support available to students with disabilities, students who are gifted, and students with unmet needs. The center offers support, workshops, and other programming for families, educators, student support professionals, administrators, and advocates in Massachusetts. The center also conducts some scholarly research and provides educator preparation and professional development. We're able to offer you this incredible three-part educational series with no cost to you, thanks to a generous grant from the Sudbury Foundation. Much of the work we do is funded through grants. For this reason, and so we can continue to meet the needs of local families, it's incredibly important that we get your feedback on the events we offer. As such, later in the event, Simone will provide you a time to fill out a short survey so we can learn from your feedback and continue to offer more enriching events like this one. Now for important info for tonight. If you'd like to receive PDPs for tonight's training, please make sure that your name on Zoom reflects the name you wanted printed on your PDP certificate when filling out the registration form. To change your name in Zoom, click the three small dots on the right-hand corner of your image box. Sorry, we have more folks joining us. Awesome. So to change your name on Zoom, click the three small dots on the right-hand corner of your image box and click rename. That will allow you to type your name as you'd like it to appear on the screen. And in a few minutes, I'll use that to take attendance. And so that will allow the certificates to be sent out. Likewise, the PDP certificates are sent out using snail mail by the Framingham State University Division of Graduate Studies and Continuing Education. So not the Chris Walsh Center, but we are working with that center on campus. And they'll be sent out via snail mail. So if we already have your address or if we talked about your address since then, I already have it. But otherwise, if for some reason you registered and submitted an email, but not a physical address, I will reach out to you after the event to make sure that we have the physical address. But it is important that you respond to that email if you want the certificate. So this is the second training in this series for the spring 2025 semester. If you're here, you'll receive the information about the final training. However, it's not too late to register, so please invite any friends or colleagues who you think would benefit to register for the last event. And then finally, we have a few events for caregivers, educators, and mental health professionals coming up. These include Fostering Family Resiliency Through Art, which is later tonight at 7:00 p.m., and the last two meetings of our spring 2025 caregiver support group, as well as a virtual ADHD panel, which will be taking place at 7 p.m. on April 28th. We're still developing the registration page for the ADHD panel, so be on the lookout for that. However, I'm going to put the links for the other two events in the chat now. There you go. And then now for some details about how tonight's training will run. Dr. Simone Kotraba has designed this event to be experiential, so your questions, comments, and interaction are welcome and encouraged. Likewise, if you are able to be on camera, that would be wonderful. Of course, if you aren't able to turn on your camera, that's fine as well. Sometimes Simone will invite you to speak out loud, while at other times she'll invite you to respond in the chat. If for any reason you prefer to type your questions and comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will read them for Simone to answer and engage with. So now on to tonight's main event, Cultivating Mindful Resilient Schools. Dr. Simone Kotraba is the founder of Heart Mind Solutions. She's a transformational coach and wellness facilitator who guides individuals and teams on a journey of growth and expansion, helping them unite their hearts and minds. With her lighthearted wisdom and vibrant energy, Simone creates a welcoming and supportive environment for participants to tap into their highest potential. Simone has worked with families, taught and led in pre-K through higher education, and holds multiple licenses and certifications. She's passionate about the integration of social emotional learning and well-being practices in schools. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Simone Kotraba.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces and new faces. Delighted that you could join us. So we're just going to jump right in. I'll share my slide and we'll get started right away. All right, let's see. Zoom is always tricky. I mean, it's been years now and still very tricky. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Okay, perfect. So cultivating mindful, resilient schools. So we're going to get started with our learning targets. For those of you who are currently in K-12 education, we're currently doing EL curriculum in my school that I work in Arlington. And so I've been practicing using learning targets. So I'm trying them out on you tonight as I do my trainings. So hopefully tonight, and that was feedback I received too from the survey. I guess I didn't have objectives or learning targets, so people wanted to make sure that it was in alignment with what they signed up for. So thank you for that feedback. So hopefully tonight we'll gain an understanding of mindfulness and learn how to practice mindfulness to build students' resilience. And, you know, because it's your goal, so I will understand how negative thoughts and emotions impact and develop the brain. And I will learn how to support students in self-regulation and co-regulation practices to cultivate and promote mindful, resilient students. So typically the students would read the learning targets and they would unpack it, but we won't do that here tonight. All right, so just to frame and ground us in resiliency, the last time we met, we talked about resilience. And I would love for someone to unmute and just read this, what resilience is for us. That way we're hearing all voices, not just my voice.
I can go.
Thank you.
Resilience. Resilience is the capacity to prepare for, recover from, and adapt in the face of stress, challenge, or adversity. Building a resilience capacity is a proactive way to reduce and prevent stress buildup, sustain your energy, and feel and perform better.
Thank you. Beautiful. So in schools, and in order to build resilient schools and resilient students and educators, we not we need to prepare for, right? So we need to be proactive, not just always being reactive. So some of the things we'll talk about here tonight is to really be proactive in preparing to be resilient and to use mindfulness practices to build resilient schools. So this is, we're going to take a moment. And before we go into breakout room, I'll explain this to you. So I would love for you in a moment, not yet, just to, find an object or a physical artifact in your area, wherever you are sitting or standing, to represent how you, as an educator, can promote a mindful, resilient school. So, so think about how you could promote a mindful, resilient school, and just find something in your area that you can show us, a physical object or an artifact. And then I'll give you a minute to find that object. Once you have your object, come back and just hold it up for us, okay? So ready, set, go. All right. Yep. Thank you, Victoria. Give me a thumbs up if you are ready. So I found my object. Beautiful. Hold up your object so we can all see it. Perfect. All right. So in a moment, Natalie will, not yet Natalie, will put you in breakout room, groups of threes. And in your breakout room, you're going to show your object to your group and tell them why that object or artifacts will help you promote a mindful, resilient school. So after each person share their object and their story, the rest of the group members will reflect back saying, thank you for sharing, I appreciate what you shared. Okay, so want to reflect back just some gratitude or appreciation to to each parties, what you appreciate about their object or what they shared. Does that make sense? So if that makes sense to you, give me a thumbs up. Thank you. And then Natalie will send you off into Zoomosphere, and then we'll come back in about 4 minutes, right?
Yeah,
So
we had 5 minutes is what it's set up for. And then you'll have a 10-second countdown. And no worries if you're in your car or anything, because I have it set that everybody's automatically going to get sent to their rooms. So off you go.
Thanks, Natalie. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hopefully you met a new friend and you learned all about them, how they would promote a resilient school. I think we're all back. Well, welcome back. So I would love to hear at least two voices to bring to the room, just to share the wisdom that you have shared in your individual breakout rooms. So please feel free to unmute and show us your item and tell us how you would cultivate, or probably are already cultivating, a resilient, mindful school. We would love to hear. So feel free to unmute and share.
I'll share.
Well,
Sorry. Anita, do you want to go?
No, you go first.
My group was Elizabeth and Kelly, and something similar that we all mentioned was something tangible, something more. Two of us said a piece of jewelry, one of us said a fidget, but the way that it was kind of like grounding us and keeping us both present with ourselves or with any students we work with, the fidget, like any student who needs that type of reinforcement, but to try and, but we're approaching vacation soon. So how to keep people, adults and students, as locked in as possible, if you will.
Thank you. Let's appreciate you, Chris Ann.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Yes. All right, Anita, you're up.
Okay, I'm next. I was fortunate enough to be in a room with Jennifer and Nikki, and Nikki's driving, so we didn't let her share a whole lot. But we talked about how Jennifer and I both picked something that also had a smell. So, using like the more senses, like I picked my stress relief lotion that I put on probably 5 or 6 times a day. And the kids notice, they're like, oh, what is that? What is that? And like, it is almost calming, either that or they just distracted. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I don't know, but I always have a bottle of that hanging around.
Beautiful. Thanks, Anita. Let's appreciate Anita for sharing. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. That is, whatever works for you to promote and support students, you have to go with that, right? All right, so we're going to move on to our next slide here. So we're going to practice one of my favorite techniques, and I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar. And this is called the body scan. And as we talk today, I'm going to tell you how I've used the body scan with students from kindergarten to high school, right? So I recently worked with a high school group of students. We're a language. One group of students were taking Spanish, another group Mandarin, and the teacher said, "Oh, Simone, they're very stressed out. We need some help. Can you come over and help us at the high school?" So I met with the students, and typically what we do, and you can try this as well. I have students sit in a circle first, and then we talk about what we're doing, right? And so if you have an item, you can always, what we just did, right? You could use that same scenario that we did to help students ground them in the topic of mindfulness or what you're going to do. So I then just invite students, either you can stand, you can sit, you can lay down, whatever feels comfortable for you. And that's the language I use with them. And I always say, this is an invitation. Do what is comfortable for you, do what feels right to you. So we're never forcing them. And I always say you can keep your eyes open or closed, or you could just lightly look down to just rest your eyes. And that's exactly the language I use. So feel free to use that language if that suits your student population. And sometimes students are not able to do follow all along because we have, diverse learning groups and learners. So modify based on the students who are in front of you. Okay, does that make sense? So for this one, we will do it for about 3 minutes. And the practice is just to bring awareness. So before we get started, I always ask students to just do a quick scan of your body. And I'm going to ask you just to do a quick scan of your body and just notice what's happening with your body. So just take a moment right now to scan, notice what's happening with your body. And if you can just jot it down. If not, that's also okay. And now we're going to move into the actual body scan. So we'll do it for about 3 minutes. And with students, you could do it for 1 minute to start, 2, 3 minutes. It's totally up to your population of learners, okay? So this is an invitation. Find a comfortable position, either sitting, lying down, or standing, whatever works for you. You can close your eyes or leave them open. Just rest your eyes. And bring your attention to your entire body. Now bring your attention to the bottom of your feet. Notice how it feels inside your shoes or on the floor. Now bring your attention up to your calves and shin. To your thighs, the front, the back, the side. Bring your attention to your torso. Your arms and hands. Bring your attention to your head, the back, the sides, the top of your head. Bring your attention to your face, the jaw. Just relax the jaw. And if this feels comfortable for you, bring your attention to your breath and just notice how you're breathing. No need to change your breathing. Just notice what is here right now. If your mind wanders, just bring it back to the breath and just notice. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. If you need to stretch, you can go ahead and do so. If you need to stand, you can go ahead and do so. And when you're ready, bring your attention back to the Zoom screen. You could give me a thumbs up or turn your camera back on when you are ready. Beautiful. Thank you. So now the invitation here is just take a moment. You can either put it in the chat or you can just jot it down. What do you notice after the body scan? So that was a quick body scan and it was intentional because in schools, we know we don't have a lot of time. So I wanted to really be realistic to give you a short 3 minutes to do like a quick scan as if you were with your students. So just write down either on paper or in the chat, whatever feels comfortable for you. What do you notice after practicing?
We have relaxed, more aware of where my muscles hurt, whole body calmness, feeling calmer, another more relaxed, feeling more focused now.
Thank you. And now think about how can you practice this body scan with students to promote a mindful, resilient school? And I would love for somebody to either unmute and share. How can you practice the body scan with students to promote a mindful, resilient school? So you can unmute and share, or if you want to put it in the chat, that's also fine. But I love hearing voices.
I'll share. I have a class that happens that I distinctly notice that the students have more energy in the afternoon than they do in the morning. It's an inclusion class. And I think that this would be helpful, like for those 3 or 4 kids who might not know where their energy levels are. But I think, in an effort not to single any one student out, we all do it. And I liked your idea of like shortening it because I've done this like a meditation practice where I'm laying on the ground and, I go for 5 minutes and it's even a struggle for me, an adult, but like even like I'm working with middle schoolers. So like the thought of having them be silent for 1 minute feels literally impossible. But I mean, like, again, with practice, but even just like thinking about their whole body and then reflecting on it. I like this idea.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Absolutely. And I also, with middle schoolers, I definitely do like a 2-minute thing. And I just do the whole body, like just exactly what you said. Just bring your attention to your entire body, notice what's happening, and then we kind of move to something else. And you don't have to do, when I do it longer, I do a lot more parts of the body. This one, I did certain parts of the body. So again, kind of do a temperature check with your kiddos to see where they are. And then you could choose the body parts that might be helpful for those kiddos. Anybody else had something else they wanted to share? How can you use this in your setting? Because we want this to be practical, real life experience for you to just take this tonight and do it tomorrow. Because that's how we're going to fire and wire those connections in our brain. So that way we are also more resilient, and we are able to do it more often with our classes. So thank you. Nancy, did you want to share?
Yeah, I was going to say it made me think. So I'm old. I grew up in the 70s, and I remember sometimes when we would be like a little bit rowdy, we would be told to put our heads down on our desk, and we knew that, we were in trouble. But I was actually thinking about how that really did help to calm us down, and how I like how this is kind of almost like a more positive version of that. Like like we knew that like we were in trouble back in the 70s. And so I liked this. I liked this. Okay, let's just think about transitioning from one activity to another. When kids come to me, they're coming from a different classroom setting. I have multiple groups kind of throughout the day. So I like this as a way of kind of like grounding and, okay, now we're in this space. Let's get this started, but in that positive way.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you. I appreciate that. Exactly. And that's what we're preparing, right? That's the preparation, not being reactive, not waiting until something happens to then redirect or help support students' resiliency, but being prepared, getting ready for it. And now it's MCAS season, right? So you can do this before MCAS, right? Because that research shows that it reduces anxiety and it promotes like alertness and awareness. Thank you for sharing. Beautiful. So we'll move on to our next slide. Oops. So here we reflected. So we're going to look at the brain because part of our target for tonight is looking at the brains and seeing, oops, go back, how the structures of the brain can keep us resilient or move us out of resiliency, right? And I find I call my previous life in education and my current life in education. Before I worked as a vice principal and an educator and a program director in public education and private, and I didn't understand the brain the way I do now. So now I'm actually grounding my work in the science of the brain and how that can help us be more resilient. So when you look at the brain, the survival center, right, the brain stem, the back of the brain, where we're showing right here red, right? Sometimes our kiddos are in that fight, flight, freeze response when it's a test or a social situation, or just academics are too hard, or life is just overwhelming. And if we're in this part of the brain, we are not learning, right? So think about our survival system. It moves all the energy from the brain into our lower extremities for us to run away, right? Fight or hide, right? So the brain, that's preparing us for danger.
I'm sorry, Simone, to pause you. Leslie said that they can't see the slides. Is that happening for other folks too? Or because I know I can see it on my screen, but
oh, thank you for that. Can you?
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, Leslie. It sounds like everybody else can see, but I'm not sure how to solve that problem.
Yeah, and I'll talk through it, Leslie, and I'll have a little video so that will help you, ground it for you. And
she can see it now, so.
Oh, perfect. Yes. So think about your kiddos, right? When they come in, we want to prepare them for learning and for social interaction. So if they're in the brainstem because they had a difficult morning, they're in the survival state and the brain is not available for learning, right? We're going to move to number 2, the blue, the midbrain, the limbic system. This is our emotional brain here in the middle. And when we think about Maslow hierarchy of needs, we talk about connection, belonging, love, care, right? Joy, all of that is in the midbrain. And if our kiddos are not feeling connected to us, to themselves, and to the community, right, then their emotional state is very fragile. So they're probably in not a high quality emotional state. They're probably in like a depleting emotional state, like frustration and anger and sometimes sadness. And when they're in that state, learning cannot occur. So that's why it's important for us to ensure that we're building and cultivating relationships with students, and student to student, educator to students, and they have a trusted adult that they can interact with. And that's the midbrain. And then here on the green, our frontal lobe, the executive functioning. A lot of times, especially middle schoolers, and for a lot of kiddos, because the neocortex is not fully developed until age 25 to age 30. So a lot of times they have challenges with executive functioning skills. So if we're in the brainstem because we're upset, we're angry, and we're not feeling connected to an adult or our classmates, then learning cannot happen in the neocortex, right? Learning does not happen. So keep this in mind, right, when you are preparing your lesson and you want to cultivate resilience in your students. So I'm going to show a video that talks about it better than I can. And let's see. Daniel Siegel, most of you are probably familiar with his work. Are you able to see that? Okay, perfect. I'm going to start the video.
One of the most rewarding experiences for me has been to study brain science and apply it to the experience of parenting. And the hand model of the brain that I use to teach parents is very useful to understand that. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your palm, put your fingers over the top, this is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull, the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes we can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others, including our children. Now, you can actually bring yourself back online and come back to the high road and make a repair with your child. And that's important to explain to them. And you can also use this hand model of the brain to explain to children, even as young as 5 and 6, how to understand when their emotions are rising up from the brainstem and limbic areas here, and how it's overriding the prefrontal area and making it so they may be about to flip their lids. So I've had kids come tell me that they're about to go flip their lids and they need a break. They need a timeout. And by even just naming that, they can tame it. And that's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and our children to help us all make sense of what goes on in the emotional communication that we have in the course of day-to-day life.
Oh, hey, how's it going? I'm pen and paper guy, but I'm
Oops.
motion.
Oh. All right, sorry about that, YouTube. All right, perfect. So based on the video, I would love to hear your takeaway, either in the chat or just unmute and share. What is your big takeaway from that video? You've probably seen it before, but just based on what we're talking about today, what's your big takeaway?
how malleable it is and how flexible it can be. And yet those moments, right? It's hitting those critical moments and how do you self-learn? How do you take feedback from others? It's remarkable, but it's also very practical, right? There's kind of a roadmap to at least give you some guidance, both as the adult and the person experiencing it or whoever, uh,
Perfect. Thank you, Joe. Exactly. So here's a simple technique that I'm going to show you right now that you can use for yourself when you feel, I'm going to flip my lid, right? Or your students, right? So this technique, some of you might be familiar with it. So there's the rainbow breathing. That's one technique that I often use with kids. And then I also use like heart focused breathing, which we'll do later. So we're going to try the rainbow breathing technique. And it's simply, arms at your side. So I'll just model first and then we'll do it together. So with your kiddos, arms at your side, you inhale up slowly, inhale all the way to the top of the head. You hold it and you slowly bring your arms down. Right? And that can help, instead of flipping your lid, it can help you regulate your autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is what, rest and digest, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So if you're in that flipping your lid mode, you're more likely in your sympathetic nervous system, like frustration or anger. So if you're able to slowly inhale and breathe, and you hold it maybe for 5 seconds and slowly exhale through the mouth, that will help you regulate the actual autonomic nervous system. Sometimes people ask me, if I give my student like a fidget, will that work? I said, it might help to redirect the behavior, but you want to regulate the system so that way the brain can synchronize and work better. Does that make sense? So we're going to practice the rainbow breathing together. You can sit, stand, whatever works for you. And we'll do it a few times. And when you're breathing, I'm going to encourage you to inhale through the nose slowly, and you hold it and exhale through the mouth slowly. Okay, so it could be 5 in, hold for 5, exhale for 5. Okay, so ready? Inhale. Exhale. And let your students know they can go at their own pace as well. We want to make sure we're differentiating. Ready? Inhale. Exhale. We'll do it 2 more times. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. And there's also another variation of that one. If you have kiddos who are, sometimes we have kiddos who are lower energy. Not all of our kiddos are high energy. Sometimes we have kiddos who are low energy, but they're in a space of sadness or worry or anxiety. So that's also very helpful for them. So sometimes when you want to move them from like the lower energy to more higher energy, you can actually, and I think in our previous class, we did this, and you can do it a lot faster. So for some kids who need to shift to higher energy, you can do it a lot faster. So if you're able, we're going to practice like a little bit faster, just to see how you feel before you introduce it to your kiddos. Okay? Does that work for everybody? So if you're able to, we'll do it. And you can go at your own pace too. Okay? So you can sit or stand, whatever works for you. So I'm going to go really fast. So just go at your pace. Ready? So ready? Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. We're going to go faster. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Ready? One more. Right? So those are different ways that you can help students regulate their autonomic nervous system, right? It talks to the brain. When you're moving your body, you're increasing your heart rate, and that allows the brain to synchronize. Okay, does that make sense? So again, play with these techniques, see what works, and try them out. And sometimes I have students also lead the practices. So once I've introduced them, then I have students take turns leading the practices. So they have more of a buy-in, they're more taking on leadership roles, and they're actually doing it so they can then practice when they're ready to flip their lids. Okay, so those are some things that you can try. Perfect. So I'm going to move into, we talked about like regulation for self, but it's also important for co-regulation as well. So the adults need to be regulated, and that will promote co-regulation for students. So this is another technique that I love. I'm going to show you right here, and we're going to get to practice later in a breakout room, this technique. Let's see. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as I'm going through. Here we go. So this is another image of the brain, right? So I want you to have this in your mind when you are seeing a student who is dysregulated. I want you to think about, oh, Jason's in his, lizard brain, so he's not able to attend, right? So think about it. And, when you're teaching a lesson, oh, my students need to be in, the neocortex so they can access language and imagination and reasoning. So let me do one of these techniques to get them there before I teach the lesson. Okay. So this will help you remember how to prepare your students to be more resilient and to access what you're putting down. So this is another favorite technique. This is called the wishing well, or it could be compassion meditation. Some people know it as loving kindness. I love this because this helps not just me, it helps the people that I'm with. So this technique we'll practice together as a group, and then later I'll have you practice with a partner. So all we will do, I'm going to just read it to you first, and then we'll practice together. So very simple when you explain to your students, right? Just find a comfortable position, whatever that means for you, right? We want students to feel comfortable. And if it's not comfortable, just let them know it's okay, right? Just do what works for you. So they can either lay down. I've had kids who fell asleep during this practice. And I'm like, that's okay because you needed rest and you got rest. So that's totally fine. So, encourage and motivate whatever happens because everyone will have their own experience. And so just, I'll tell them to allow their body to settle down and relax as best as they can. And then we start with self-compassion, right? Sometimes that's very hard for us adults. I know for educators, because we're used to always giving but not receiving. But I want you to be able to give to yourself first so you can then help support your learners. So you want to bring your focus to your heart and just silently repeat. And then you're just going to say to yourself, may I be safe? May I live with ease? And just very simple because we only have a quick time in school, and then you're going to extend it. You can extend it to your colleagues, your entire class, your entire school, and you can gradually just extend your loving kindness by saying, may you be safe, may you live with ease, and then visualize the people. So if it's your classroom or your staff or whoever, visualize them in your mind. And just you're sending it out to them. So you're repeating the phrase over again and feeling care and compassion for them. So that's kind of how this works. So any questions before we actually practice? Does that make sense? And again, simple, quick. We want to be able to do things quickly. You don't need to close your eyes, and you can let students know they can practice if they're transitioning from like PE class to, language arts. You could do it when they're transitioning. You could do it when you're in the class, after a situation, anytime that you find that is helpful for you. Okay. So when you're ready, just find a comfortable space, laying down, sitting, or standing, whatever feels good for you. And just allow your body to relax as best as you can. No need to force. And we're going to start by sending ourselves some self-compassion. So begin by focusing your attention in the area of your heart. And silently repeat to yourself, may I be safe. May I live with ease. You could repeat it twice. So may I be safe. May I live with ease. Now we're going to extending it to others. So I'm going to extend it to this group here. So you can think about the who you want to extend it to. So may you be safe. So just repeat gently, to yourself. May you live with ease. May you be safe. May you live with ease. Now visualize the people that you want to send this out to. And now feel the feeling in your heart, care, calm, or compassion. To feel those feelings. And silently repeat, may you be safe. May you live with ease. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And just allow yourself to just rest in this moment. And when you're ready, you can bring your attention back to the space. You can give me a thumbs up or turn your camera back on to let me know that you are ready. Thank you. And now I'm going to just invite you just to reflect on your own for about a minute. Just, if you have pen, paper, or you can just type, just reflect what you notice when you practice this wishing well. Just write down for yourself what you noticed. So it could be a feeling, a sound, what you saw, anything that came up for you. All right, I'm going to invite you to bring your attention back. And I would love for you to just drop in the chat anything that came up for you that you noticed.
Yeah, folks have already started sharing. Simone Mark said peacefulness. I hope I don't mess up your name, Rosipa. It opened up my breath. I was breathing more deeply afterwards. Nancy said, it reminds me of prayer, a desire to be my best self and good for others.
Oh, thank you all so much.
Bobby also said, felt connected, like I was paying the calm energy forward.
Yes, that's right, Bobby. Yes. So that's part of the co-regulation process, right? It helps your students, and even if you have students in your classroom who may not want to practice, that's okay, because the fact that a group of us or a group of students practice, that is impacting everyone in the room, everyone in the space, because the energy is moving and they're feeling the compassion and care that you're sending out. So it's really a powerful practice that can help shift and co-regulate with each other. So thank you for noticing and sharing. We're going to move to the next technique. Before we get into the technique, this is another practice, and this is from the Heart Math Institute. And I think the last time we met, we did a couple of the Heart Math practices, but this is another one you can try with your students. I think I shared this inner weather activity in the resources with you. If not, I will reshare again. So usually when I do this activity with students, I show them this image. And again, we start with self-awareness. So I would ask them, where are you on this grid? Right? So if it's a first grade class, I have them read it and I make sure they understand what I'm talking about. Sometimes I use images for the emotions for the younger children, but for the older ones, I sometimes use images and words. So based on your audience, and if you have learners who are neurodivergent, images and words paired together would be helpful. So where are you on the grid? So I would have them identify, and you can just do this just for yourself. Where are you on the grid? So we know here it says high energy draining emotions are anger, frustration, overwhelmed, right? And this is the sympathetic nervous system. Up here, it says high energy, uplifting emotion by my cursor. And this is also the sympathetic nervous system. However, the emotions on this side of the grid, it's more renewing emotions, uplifting emotions that can cultivate self-regulation and co-regulation. And below, you will see down here is the parasympathetic nervous system. So the rest and digest system. And it shows sadness, worry, disappointment. That is also draining emotions, right? So some of our kiddos who feel anxious and they worry, they may look quiet and withdrawn, but sometimes they're feeling these emotions that are depleting. So the goal is to support them in moving to a more renewing emotion. So calm, that's an easy one. Sometimes neutral for some kids, and being friendly and helpful and patient and peaceful. So encouraging them to look where they are on this grid and find out where they want to move to. Sometimes when we're in the high emotions, we can't move all the way to the calm and peace. Sometimes we have to move down to go over. Sometimes we have to move from here to here. So again, just allow your students to have their own experiences and just listen to what they're sharing without, I guess, putting our own beliefs on them or suggesting where they should be, because we want them to really identify where they are. So the Heart Math Institute found that when we are in this side of the grid, the left side, the draining emotions, where our heart is beating incoherently and our brain is not working as effectively, right? So you can see the jagged lines here, incoherence, the brain doesn't work well. The side where it shows more coherent waves, the blue lines, that's when the heart and the brain is communicating. And you can get insight, you make better decisions, you're more socially aware, you're more regulated, and you can learn a lot better and a lot faster, right? And that's cortical facilitation. The brain is working well and it's thinking clearly, okay? So in order to move from incoherent to coherence, we have to bring our attention to the heart area, okay? Because research shows that the heart has its own little brain in the heart that sends 90% of the information up to the cranial brain, 10% from the cranial brain down to the body, all right? So this technique I'm going to show you next, this is called the heart lock-in technique, okay? And first I'll walk you through it, we'll practice, and then I'll have you go into breakout room and practice together. So this technique is just bringing your attention to your heart. You can practice for 3 minutes, 10 minutes, or even longer. It's totally up to you. But in a school setting, when I practice, I do sometimes 2 minutes to 3 minutes based on my audience. If it's a kindergarten class, sometimes I do 1 minute or 30 seconds. So, you gently just shift your attention to your heart. And then you just visualize your breath flowing in and out of the heart space, because we want to activate the heart. We don't want to force, we want to be very gentle, and just imagine it's flowing in and out and notice what's happening as you visualize. Then we move to a space where we're intentionally cultivating and sustaining a regenerative feeling such as calm, appreciation, care, or compassion for someone or something in our lives. It could be for a pet, a place like the ocean, a person, or something that, an accomplishment, right? And then you have the feeling in your heart. You're not thinking too much about what it is. You bring it to mind if it's your puppy, and then you bring it into your heart and you activate the feeling. And you sustain the feeling for a while, and then you move into expanding that feeling out to others and yourself. So you're going to radiate it out to yourself and others, and that helps to co-regulate with others. So you could co-regulate with your pet, your students, your children, your spouse, anyone that you want. And this practice allows us to release oxytocin, melatonin, serotonin, dopamine, and all the good chemicals in our body that renews our system and allows the brain and body to function at its best, right? It helps to increase our performance and keep us in a place of calm and ease if that's where we want. If you're playing sports and you want to be in a high energy, it also can bring you into that high energy place, right? So it's not always calm. You just pick the feeling that you want and feel it with your heart, and it will bring you to that state. Does that make sense? All right, perfect. So now we'll practice together. So again, you can do it on the go if you're walking between your car and the school building, right? You don't have to be sitting, eyes open or closed, whatever works for you, okay? Because we're in a school and we want to be able to do these techniques on the move because we don't always have time to sit and practice, right? It's not realistic. Does that make sense? But if you do have time to sit and practice, that's perfect, and you could do it longer, all right? So whenever you're ready, just bring your attention to the area of your heart. And just imagine that your heart, your breath is flowing in and out of the heart or chest area. And just visualize your breath flowing in and out of the heart or chest. Now I'm going to invite you to intentionally cultivate and sustain a regenerative feeling such as calm, appreciation, care, or compassion for someone or something in your life. Could be a person, a pet, or your favorite location, and bring that feeling to your heart. Now radiate that feeling of compassion out to yourself. Now you can send it out to others. So if you're in your classroom, you can send it out to your students. And if your mind wanders, just come back to the heart and feeling those emotions. I invite you to take a nice inhale and exhale. On your next inhale and exhale, bring your attention back to the space. And when you're ready, you can give me a thumbs up or get your camera back on so I know that you're ready. Beautiful, thank you. So perfect. So with that said, we're going to, and Natalie, you can share the directions. I'm going to pull it up right here before I send you to breakout room to practice. Let's see.
Those are in the chat for everybody.
Okay, perfect. So here, our next invitation for you, I want you to be able to practice with a partner, because it will help you to fire and wire, right? The directions in your brain. So for this invitation, partner A, partner B, one partner A will do wishing myself and others well. So that partner will read the direction to partner B, okay? And you're gonna get a total, I forgot the time, Natalie. What time did we
We're
say?
doing 8 minutes, but Simone, Anita made us aware that we need access for the link, and that's something that you'll have to give because it's your link.
Perfect. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I will do that.
Thank you.
Yes. So partner A will go read it, okay? And then partner B will do the heart lock-in, right? So roughly each technique should be 3 minutes each per se. And then at the end of the complete techniques, then you will have time to reflect with each other. Like, what did you notice? What did you see? What did you feel? Like, reflect what worked, what didn't work. So all you're doing is partner A reads it to partner B, and partner B will be the student, right? And then you'll switch, and then one will be the student, one will be the teacher. Does that make sense? Am I clear? Okay, so I will go ahead before the breakout room just to make sure you have access before you go into the breakout room. I know I thought about that earlier, and then it totally slipped my mind. So just bear with me for 1 minute.
Yeah, I was able to get into it, so I didn't think to ask you about it because I assumed it was just ready to go. Sorry, guys.
Yes, I thought so too. Okay, here we go. So click. I think because I did it on my work email, it didn't. Okay, here we go. So anyone with link can access. Let me know if you can access now. Maybe refresh and see if you can access. Perfect. So hopefully we have pairs and then we're able to do that. Okay.
Yep,
Any questions before you go? Good. Okay.
So we have one group of 3,
Perfect.
but sorry, this ends at 5:30. And we have one group of 3, but otherwise it'll be groups of 2. And yeah, you'll have 8 minutes, and same thing, about a 10-second countdown after those 8 minutes for everybody to come on back. So, and same thing, everybody will get automatically placed. You don't have to do anything. And I'm opening the rooms now.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Hopefully you had a chance to all practice. And I would love to hear from at least 2 people before we close out. How was that for you as the teacher or the student practicing? And you could unmute or you could put it in the chat, whatever works for you. So how was the practice, whether you partner A, partner B? We're also zen and regulated. And that's okay too. Holding space, that's also a good thing, right? Like when we're regulated, it's good to just hold space. We don't always have to share.
Anita admitted that they spent some time bonding, and that was one of the things we wanted with this longer breakout room, and did one of the techniques. So.
Perfect.
I'm guilty of that too.
I remember we talked about that midbrain, right? Connection and belonging. That's exactly what happens, right? So we want that for our students. So perfect. I love it.
Nancy said, I tend to be high energy. It calmed me, and I think it could ease the tension I often see in my students. Victoria said, we were discussing how they would also apply to our different age groups. And Jennifer said us too. I'm assuming that's in response to Anita.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. It's yes. And when you practice enough, right? When you practice with your students, you're going to be in that love zone, that midbrain. A lot of those chemicals being released and feeling good. So thank you for trying it out, and all of that. The techniques and everything will be they're in the resources. But if something I shared tonight is not in the resource list, I will add them to the resource list. And you can always reach out for questions or anything. Okay. So our last thing before we close is just looking at reflecting. What action step will you take to cultivate a mindful, resilient school for yourself, student, or your team? Could be for anyone. So just think about that and just jot it in the chat. So what action step will you take to cultivate a mindful, resilient school for yourself, students, and or team? And just put that in the chat so we could see your action steps.
So we had a question. In the second heart practice, in the third step, are you sending that feeling out to someone or wishing for them to feel it?
So you're just sending it out to them. Yes, sending it out. Yes. So the intention is there that it goes out to them. If they feel it, great. If not, great. We're just sending it out. Great question. Thank you. So just quickly jot your action step. How will you do this? And then we'll hand it over to Natalie.
So we got, I'm trying this. Nancy said, I'm trying this tomorrow with fourth graders. Jennifer said, trying to remember every day that I need to be in a good space if I want my students to be. Anita, I'm going to print out a few of the techniques to have them on hand so I can refer to them as needed. Mark introduced the new techniques in homeroom. This is all great. And also tonight's event is being recorded and you'll have access to this. Simone and I were talking about this while you guys were in the breakout room of like, there were so many great resources in this one, as there always are, that this is a great one to come back and check back in with if you need those refreshers in the future. So that will be available to you.
Thank you all so much for participating and for really being present. I really love hanging out with you. This is my favorite thing to do. So thank you all. And hopefully these techniques will be helpful for you, your family, and the people that you serve. So thank you. Over to you, Natalie.
So as always, I know many of you have done this for me already, but if you can do the survey again, I just put that in the chat. All of them count and all of them are helpful. So any feedback you can give us, any more trainings that you'd like to see offered, all of that information is wonderful. Also, as always, thank you, Simone. This training was wonderful. And I know I definitely took some things away from it that I'm looking forward to doing with the kids that I serve. And thank you all for your participation in cultivating mindful, resilient schools. As always, your participation in these events and the work you do in the world with the information you learn is how we as the Chris Walsh Center make change in our communities and serve the young people who rely on our care to the best of our ability. So we recognize your dedication to your students, your families, and yourselves, and we can't make a positive impact without you. So thank you for being here, and we hope that you have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.